So I'm just introducing Julia as we're just in conversation, and I just thought, actually, you know what, we're just going to start actually recording this, and we can put it out on social media as we feel fit, because actually it's a really interesting conversation that we've just started having, which basically was started off with myself talking about the fact that I'm in a bit of a dilemma at the moment about I'm taking a particular drug that is a PARP inhibitor that stops the BRCA gene talking to the cancer cells. And I've got a dilemma in the fact that do I carry this drug on after 2 years, which I have the option of doing, which I didn't realize, or do I stop? And the dilemma is that the fact that obviously it's great that it feels like it's holding everything back, but as Julia and I were just discussing, all these drugs come with such a huge array of side effects, and one of the side effects that can come from me carrying on with the particular drug that I'm on, which is called olaparib, actually is the fact that you can get your bone marrow affected, which can lead to leukemia. And that's a really, really big decision, I feel, to have to make. So I feel like it's like a bit of a gamble, it's a gamble on my whole life. Which way do I go? And so we were just talking around that. And, Julia just can perhaps just share what you were just telling me about before we just decided to start recording. And we're just going to open this into a lovely flowing conversation and see what comes of it today.
Yeah. Well, I think, my background, as you know, Sarah, is I've had 2 cancers, 5 years apart, and quite different ones, and in different, in places. Super lucky today, cancer-free, on no drugs of any type whatsoever. But the decision about 18 months ago was I'd been on this certain drug for 12 years, was to end the course probably about 4 or 5 months earlier than the recommended dose, which was the second lot again. So I made that decision, and it's also deeply personal, but I felt like I've been on the drug for I think I said about 11 years, and I felt really safe in the fact that I wanted to start making some decisions to give my body its control back. And I feel like my cancer risk was a lot lower because I'd got to that second lot of cancer being 5 years, but the side effects were quite a lot. So in the end, I came off it, and a year and a half, 18 months later, I'm still cancer free and I'm really good. But it's made a big difference to my life. And we were just talking about the fact that amazing as the drugs that we've been on have been for us, they do have side effects, and they're multiple side effects. And I feel very, very lucky I'm alive, but we all have to make the call at some point what the benefits of staying on them versus coming off them. And especially my position where I felt like I'd sort of nearly done the course, but when I came off them, I felt an instant difference in my body dexterity. I had a lot of knee and bone. I take estrogen related tablets. They're sort of like your body's natural lubrication, and I felt like that all started coming back. So it was quite amazing the difference I had and how quickly my body recovered. Considering I've only been for 12 months, within about 4 months or 3 months, I felt like my old self. But it's a decision we've all got to make, and it's really difficult one. And I'm massive, say for the record, I'm a massive complementary drug taker, but I'm not an alternative. So I do all the Eastern and all the Western medicine. I'm not I'm afraid.
And I'm the same, because I think it's about an integrative approach anyway to it all, isn't it? And I'm very much about complementing everything, because I think if we boost our immune system anyway when we're going through treatment, how amazing is that actually, in my opinion, that you'll get a much stronger result from the Western medicine by complementing it with the Eastern medicine. And and I know that we obviously both love mindset stuff as well, because we met up at Dr. Joe Dispenza earlier in the year, and just a mindset in this, I think, is massively important as well, isn't it, really?
Oh my God. So I've had this conversation a lot. As you know, I do a lot of like business coaching and coaching in, helping businesses really. And I've had my own businesses for years, run and sold 2 businesses on my own. But there's a couple of things I see with that. It's almost like your mindset is your scaffolding within you. And I think because I've been through my cancers over the years and I've run a couple of businesses, I'm constantly thinking about my internal scaffolding, which is my mindset, and thinking about how I can be resilient. And I don't mean hard resilient. I mean, how can I be resilient in a soft, open way and have the tools that I need? So when me and you met up at Joe Dispenza, I really love his thinking around meditation, calming the mind, about the fact that who we are is a mixture of our sort of how we think, how we act, and how we feel, and we can impact that. And if we have 1 million thoughts a day, we can choose the thoughts that we have. It's not us. Our thinking isn't us. We choose our thoughts. So I'm really massively into a mindset. And I think it's a really big thing when you go through cancer. It's a massive thing.
And you've written some books, I think, as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So I wrote my first book, which was 7 steps, which is called Thinking Fearlessly to Grow Healthy and Wealthy, not in necessarily a monetary sense, but it's 7 steps out from fear. So if we're in a state of real fear, what is a step out from that? And the first step, I believed, was around self-belief and self-love and self-care. And then after that, when we get that in place, we can start to learn and grow. So I talk about the 7 steps. It's really interesting. One of our joint friends, Louise, who's a neuroscientist who I adore, who's done a lot of technical studies behind this as part of her course, said to me in her lifestyle experience and experience in medical professions, said, how did you know those steps? Because they're actually strangely accurate due to scientific research. And I went, that's how I felt when I was coming through it, is I was in such a place of fear. How do I come out from that? And then I've just finished my second book, which is called Tiny Brave Moves, which is it's not about giant rushes and giant leaps. It's about the tiny brave things we get up every single day consistently to do to get our mindset into a better place. Because no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but it can leave us in a lot of anxiety today if we're not careful. And if we reflect too much on the past, it can really make us feel stuck. So Tiny Brave Moves is about how we keep the momentum in life to keep moving forward, even on those bad days. It's definitely not about giant, massive leaps. It's just, doing the tiny things that make you feel like you're moving forward in life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love all that. Actually, Louise was on. I had a chat with Louise. I don't know, a month or 6 weeks ago. So she's in my socials somewhere. She was doing some sort of tool which I thought was really cool about passing the pen, because it's about the brain, and if you've got it in the right hand, it's from your left side of the brain, and obviously it's then really calming because your brain can't do so much processing in terms of if you're living with fear, and then you're just doing that. It's a really way just to ground and to bring you back to yourself, which was a really, really cool tool, actually.
Oh yeah, I interviewed her for my book, and she features in it, quite all the way through, really. But what was really amazing about it, and I've said this and I repeat it, is the fact that both my books I've written, the non-fiction books I've written, have come from experience of business and personal challenges, and I'm a fully Henley Business School ICF trained coach and everything. But from her side of it, from a neuroscience perspective, I'd sort of strangely worked it out, or worked out some of the tools that I wasn't taught. I just intuitively, which is back to Joe Dispenza, had worked through from my own awareness around my situation, and there's a big lesson in that about coming off autopilot and really being alive and really aware, and which is journaling, which Joe Dispenza does, which is meditation, understanding your thoughts and your feelings, and really sort of thinking and being aware of that, and off autopilot onto real alive living. And I think as we've both been through cancer, it's one of the amazing gifts that you get is, and I got told this by a yogi in Thailand when I was traveling one day, is that, if you go through a big trauma in life, it's like you're born a baby, pushed off the top of the highest mountain with a blindfold on. But if you go through a deep trauma, the blindfold comes off and you see how close to the floor you are. And it makes you really alive. It makes you really aware. It makes you not want to be on autopilot. It makes you really conscious. And it's something that I wanted that blindfold on back on quite a few times, but it's never going to go back on now. And therefore I am in this very much state of alive living and grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think the whole point is to be, grateful to be alive, let alone alive living sometimes.
Yeah. Really grateful. And I think when you go to these profound experiences, I think life can. I remember when I first got diagnosed, I was 39. I was running a 70-man business and 70-person business, and young mom, an 18-month-old and a 6-year-old, and life was very much autopilot, mechanistic. And you go through a cancer diagnosis, and I had a really bad one. The first one, it was 25% survival over 5 years, and you become very, very awake and grateful for the life you've got. And it radically changed my life. And 12 years out, I am, that obstacle, which was horrible at the time, changed my life in a really good way.
Yeah. I mean, I say that now, that I see cancer as one of my biggest gifts, because, it really did just open my eyes to life, actually. Instead of, as you say, and because I know that for me, I was running around on stress all the time, drama, stress, this, that, and the other. And it's only when actually something like that happens and you actually have the chance to really slow down and actually really look at what am I doing? What am I doing here? What? And it comes back a little bit to the meaning of life, I guess. But what am I doing? Finding your purpose. And but also just what am I doing with my life generally, in terms of why am I doing all this stuff? I'm rushing around, I'm stressed, I'm just getting myself burnt out. I'm just in a really, I felt a bit like I was even before the diagnosis, I felt like I was happy with my life. But I did feel really, really stressed and very burnt out. And like I say, it gave me the opportunity, I guess. So I'm trying to say is it gave me the opportunity to actually stop and slow down and reflect on my life and actually make different choices. That actually, I see that as a really positive thing now, for moving forward. And it's very easy still to slip back into old patterns every now and then. But I'm much more conscious of them when I do start to slip back into it, and I'm working more now than what I was. And obviously, I'm coaching people who are going through their own cancer diagnosis and things like that. But I see this now as my gift to be able to actually do that. And as I say, I'm just much more conscious. My husband will sometimes say to me, "Oh, you're doing 1,000,001 things again." I say, "Yeah, but I'm doing them very consciously." And I'm not doing it in a stressed way, where before it just felt like I was just running around doing all these things and not being conscious and very stressed.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my first diagnosis. I've always been a bit of a workaholic, in the sense that I really enjoy what I do, and I still do, and I love being around people. I'm high energy. And I went to see this top psychiatrist in Harley Street, and she was a cancer psychologist. And I went in to see her, and I said, "Look, I've had this really bad diagnosis. What's going to happen with my life?" And I remember my non-exec saying to me something like, statistic at the time, I'm talking 12 years ago, like 70% of women gave up work when they got diagnosed with a cancer and never went back. And I was like, "Oh, is this it? Is this me done now?" And I went to see her and I said, "Look, I've got a very young child. I've got another 6-year-old. I really need to be, I want to be alive for the next 10, 15 years to bring my boys up. I have this terrible diagnosis." And she said, "Look, if you work 12 or 13 hours in despair, then, you're going to have to be really careful. But if you work 12 or 13 hours of wind in your sails, happy days, go for it." So I think that was really telling. I think we're saying the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that is the same thing, actually. And it's a really good way to put it, actually. I never sort of heard it sort of put like that, but it is, you know, as you say, yeah, the wind in your sails. I love that. That's a really great expression. So let's talk about some of the things. I think some really useful little tools or tips that you can give to people, perhaps, you know, when they're going through this particular journey, if they're facing their own, you know, cancer diagnosis. What were you think? What were the things that you found particularly the most helpful?
I think it's that I think along the mindset thing, if we start with mind, body, soul, I think from the mindset thing, I think it's very much around living in the now, you know, crossing every bridge till you come to them. And I absolutely love the Power of Now book, and I still go back and constantly read it, which is, you know, as we know, the Power of Now is, what are you doing now in the now? What does this moment look like? How are you turning up, being your best in this moment? If you think too much about the past, it can bring on anxiety. When you're going through a cancer diagnosis, the future can feel quite fearful, because there is no one that's going to go say to you, look, 100% you're going to be okay, because nobody knows. You're in unknown territory. But to a lot of degree, none of us know. So I think the first thing in terms of mindset is, you know, living in the now, and really being conscious about your thoughts and your feelings. I think in terms of body, I think there's a lot of basic stuff around healthy eating, you know, just cutting back on the things we know are not good for us, processed foods, alcohol, you know, and really treating your body like a temple for a while. And I think soul, I think I became a lot more spiritual around it, and thinking about the meaning of life and what that meant, and the direction I wanted to go in, and my purpose, my life, what can I give back, what was my creativity, what's my talents, and not waiting for this retirement to be happy. And I'd always wanted to write my own book since I was very, very young, but got caught up in running businesses. So I wrote my first novel, then I wrote a nonfiction, and I've just finished my second novel and my second nonfiction. So, and everyone's like, how do you squeeze it in? And I'm like, it's a joy. When other people are, you know, doing their hobbies, which could be tennis or stuff like that, a big one of mine is writing. So I think about it in terms of a mind, body, soul. What can you do for your mind? Reading, understanding things, Joe Dispenza, The Power of Now. Body is just treat your body like a temple for a while, because it does go through a lot of you know, a lot of trauma, you know, and a lot of stuff that's tough on it. And then soul is, how do you connect in with your own spirituality? And I don't necessarily mean a god or any god. I mean about your connection to yourself, your meaning of your life, and what that means for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I love all that. You know, that's definitely was my journey. I was talking to somebody the other day, actually, who said, we talk about nutrition, and she said, because I was like talking about this thing that people beat themselves up sometimes, or about the choices that they make, you know, in terms of food. But she said just one of the questions that she asks herself before she actually has it, she goes, what's this food going to do for me? And she said, and if it ain't going to nourish me, she said, it's not going in.
No,
So,
I love that.
yeah, I loved it. I just thought, oh, I need to nab that one, because I just thought, yes, and it's just a way to look at it, isn't it? You know, what is the choices that we make, and that's for everything. Is it nourishing ourselves, not just in terms of food, but is it nourishing ourselves physically and spiritually? You know, is it nurturing our mind, nourishing our mind? Is it nourishing ourselves, you know, spiritually? And if so, if it's not, if we're going to do that thing, so, you know, we're going to, I don't know, I can't think of an example at the moment, but if we're going to go and do something that's detrimental, or we're going to go into that thing that's going to be really, really stressful, and we don't really actually need to do it, we can make different choices, and it ain't going in. And I just think that's quite a powerful way to look at it, you know, in terms of everything that we do. We could run it through that sort of almost like a filter of whether it's nourishing us or it's not nourishing us. And if it's not nourishing, then yeah, push it away and come back to what is nourishing us. That's down to self-care and everything else. Because there's even something about self-care, isn't there, that's can be false self-care, you know, faux self-care, in terms of, well, we think we should be doing yoga because everyone else is doing yoga. But if that's not nourishing us as a person, that's not the right choice to make. We need to go and find the things that actually nourish us and nurture us on a day-to-day basis. That might be Tai Chi instead of doing yoga or whatever, but it's just finding those things that you really feel aligned with.
And I think you've hit the point on the head there. I don't think people spend enough time really reflecting enough on themselves. It's almost seen a little bit like indulgence, that you do that. But actually, the kindest thing you can do to yourself is do, I love Elizabeth Gilbert's, the morning diaries, or the Artist's Way when they do the journaling. And from that, you do understand more about what does nourish you, because what nourishes you might not necessarily nourish me. I mean, I actually really like going to hot pod yoga 2 or 3 times a week. It makes a massive difference to my joints. But for years, I used to do like half marathons and stuff like that. But it's really what is the best nourishment for you, and it's understanding what that looks like. And we're all super different. I went to India in February to do an Ayurvedic 10 days.
Oh, wow.
One of the side effects I have got from my cancer is I've got lymphedema, which can and does turn into cellulitis. So, once or twice a year, I have to go on antibiotics, and it, swells up, and it gets really, I have to be really on top of it. So I went there to do a whole mind, body, soul retreat for 10 days, really lucky to have done it. And I came back and I'm a pitta, which is basically high energy, high fire, loads of things. But the downside of that is I've got a weakened immune system. So what are the things that I can do for myself that strengthen my immune system? Back to your point about nourishing, and it's going to be really different than what is yours. We're all so different, but it's that willing and willingness to understand what that looks like for you, and just sort of like give yourself permission to do stuff that's kind for you. And ultimately, when you do go through a cancer diagnosis, there is that we're going to eat the right thing, we're going to do the right thing, but it's got to be the right thing for you, and don't make that a almost like another restriction for yourself, because people are too harsh on themselves when you're going through a cancer diagnosis. It's about being kind, and what does that kindness look like? Massively.
Exactly. Yeah, and I absolutely agree, because that thing of sometimes, you might just reach for the ice bun, for example, but then and that's fine, as long as you're not beating yourself up about it, because otherwise that becomes stressful in itself, isn't it? So okay, it might not be nourishing you that much, but don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, there's a brilliant poem called Joy Shouldn't Just Be a Crumb. And I pro bono coach people going through cancer like you. They sort of come from my network and stuff like that. And the first thing I talk to them about is self-love. We've all been there as mums of, of business people, of things, but, we can be really tough on ourselves, and you have to really think about what self-love means. And there's a brilliant story Elizabeth Gilbert told on one of her podcasts about the Dalai Lama coming over. And he spoke to a load of Western people on his first trip, and he slowly got to think, I'm not understanding something properly here, but these 30 Western people in the room, and he was saying, what, you don't like yourselves, you don't love yourselves? And they were like, no. He's like, what? You don't love yourself, and I get a lot of that from the people I coach going through cancer, this feeling like they've not been enough, they're not good enough, they're not doing enough. And the first thing is how can you give yourself permission just to love yourself, and be kind to yourself, and whatever that looks like, because that inner, back to the mindset, that inner talk is super, super important. You would not talk to your best friend how you talk to yourself sometimes in your own mind.
Absolutely. And to be honest, it's not just people going through cancer, is it? It's everybody's story. I mean, this thing of not being enough and self-love. I mean, I hadn't even thought about self-love, actually, funny enough, until I got to having a diagnosis. And it never crossed my mind. And I look back and no, I didn't self-love at all. I didn't even God, that would have been egotistical. Do you know what I mean? I would have thought, how can I love myself in that way? And I never even thought about it. But it makes perfect sense, because we are the one person we spend all day with. We get up with ourselves in the morning. We we have breakfast with ourselves, we have lunch with ourselves, we go to bed with ourselves, and that's pretty painful, actually, if you think about it, if we're beating ourselves up all the time. And I know there's still aspects of me that I get frustrated with. I think we all do. But actually now I can be a little bit more conscious about the things that I get frustrated with, and not try and be judgmental, and just actually look about what that's showing me and go, okay. And, and remembering sometimes that we've brought some of these things through from our own programming as children that we don't even know. And so again, it goes back to just actually being a bit more gentle and kind with ourselves, as you said, and actually looking at yourself, and, as you say, learning to love yourself. But that doesn't mean it has to be a big egotistical, thing. But why not love ourselves? Because because, as I said, we are the ones we spend our days with.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things that, I got from this is, I'm really incredibly lucky. I'm surrounded by amazing family and friends. But ultimately, we are the ones that have to look after and care for ourselves, like you would a small child, your own body, your own mind. You have to look after yourself, and we are responsible for ourselves. And that means a lot of kindness to ourselves. And it's something that it's not everybody does not instinctively have that. They are very, very tough. Even in my business coaching that I do with very senior leaders, it's really important. The first thing is to do that. And it's absolutely not about ego. It's about, tender loving care on a very, very, very simple level that we all need for ourselves and in the world more of. That's a much more bigger view of society, but it's really important.
Yeah. Well, it's been such an interesting conversation. It really has. Are you at Sparfest over the next few days?
I'm not going to Sparfest. Are you?
Yeah, I thought you were originally, actually.
No.
Ah. I
No,
did wonder, because there was a meeting the other day and I thought Julia's not there.
No, I just decided I'm not going to do this year. I've obviously been the last few years, and I've written these couple of books, and I'm doing a lot of my coaching work and business coaching, non-execing. And I just said to Louise, I just had too much on. And, one of the things, I spoke to her the day, she was getting a talk ready and everything like that. And I just said, I really wanted to get these 2 books written this year and out into the world. And because of that, I've had to make some really serious decisions about what I can and can't do. I'm still a mother. I've got a 14-year-old and 19-year-old. I'm still a wife. I've still got a house to run. And I just felt like I was taking on too much. And I don't turn up to these things half-hearted, as you know. I turn up, do my hour and a half, whatever, do my workshops. I really think about them. I care about the people I'm there with, and I spend the whole time there. And it was just too much for myself this year. And I had to go through my diary and say, what am I going to do and what am I not going to do this year? Because I really need to get these 2 books done, because it's literally like, one of them I've been writing for 3 years, and I just needed to get it over the line. It was like a 2p machine at a fair. It was just kept going back and forth. And I thought, no, I need to commit for myself. And hopefully if I get these books out by the end of the year or early next year, because my cats come in to say hello.
Oh, we like it. Say hello.
It's a really important part of my own thing. And again, that's self-care and self-love. So I said to Amanda, invite me again next year. And I've obviously written, 2 books this year. So I'm going to have a lot of material for next year to talk about. But it was just, me and these things are lots of preparation, lots of care. And I was just like, whoa, that's too much this year. You?
Yeah, so I'm doing a panel on Tuesday with a few others, from somebody from a hospice, and with Emma as well, from Made for Life, and then on Wednesday I'm doing a talk for the tea and therapy, people who are invited in. So that's going to be interesting. I've not been to Sparfest before, so it's going to be
it's amazing.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I'm disappointed not to be seeing you there, but I really understand that, actually, because I think, again, that comes back to the self-care and that thing of, actually, it's so important to listen to what you need. And I think it's just actually really quite an important point to almost end this conversation on, in terms of, you know, how much self-care was that, actually making that decision that you're not going to do that and that you're going to concentrate on these other things for the moment.
Well, I think, you know, I think one of the things I definitely love running my businesses over the years is you've got to make a list of priority at the beginning of the year and stick to it. And I can be sidestepped like all of us, you know, like cats. But at the beginning of the year, I really made that decision. I want to get these 2 books finished. It's a big, you know, one's 120,000 word novel about Mother Nature. She lived amongst us. What would she be like? And I was really lucky. I got out the slush pile and through to a global top agent, and then got a no at the last minute. So I think I'm really close with my writing career. And that for me is just so cathartic to write and to get some of the ideas I've got into the world. You know, I'm a real creative at heart as well as a business person, and I need to do this. And that just meant saying no to a few things. And there's quite a few things I've said no to. Even my husband's been quite surprised about it. But I just said, look, I'm going to end the year, and I'm going to be another year forward with the things I need to do, not done. And
it's about balance.
Yeah, you've had that. You know, there's one of the lessons you do get from cancer is, and from life, is doing, you know, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? And it's not like I've got a big grand purpose in life, but there's stuff that I want to do that lights my soul up, mind, body, soul.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time having a conversation with me today. And hopefully we can perhaps pick up and have another one at some point. And I'm going to let you get off and write those books.
Yeah, no, yeah, thank you.
So I'll just end the recording. So thank you, Julia, so much.
That's all right. No, it's good. It's good to do. It's yeah, I mean, it's a totally different thing doing Spa Fest and doing the talk and, you know, and pairing it and having